In this video, I want to take a look at symbolic interactionism, the third major sociological paradigm. While structural functionalism focuses on social systems and conflict theory emphasizes power dynamics, symbolic interactionism begins at a different level altogether. Everyday interaction and the meanings people attach to their experiences. Symbolic interactionism is most closely associated with thinkers like George Herbert Mead. It was later formalized by Herbert Blumer, who coined the term itself. Unlike the other paradigms, symbolic interactionism is a micro-level theory. It doesn't begin with institutions or social structures, but with interaction, gestures, language, symbols, and shared interpretations. At the core of symbolic interactionism is a simple but far reaching claim. Human beings don't respond directly to objective reality. Instead, they respond to meanings. Those meanings are created, negotiated, and modified through social interaction. Blumer summarized this approach in three primary assumptions. First, people act toward things based on the meanings those things have for them. Second, those meanings arise out of social interaction. And third, meanings are continually interpreted and revised as individuals encounter new situations. From this perspective, social reality is not simply a given, it's something that's constructed. This doesn't mean that material conditions don't exist, but that our understanding of those conditions is filtered through shared symbols and interpretive frameworks. Concepts such as deviance, success, and even normality are not self-evident facts. They're social products that acquire meaning through repeated interaction. This emphasis on meaning making makes symbolic interaction especially useful for understanding how social problems emerge. Bloomer argued that social problems don't arise simply because harmful conditions exist. Instead, they develop through a social process. Bloomer outlined stages through which social problems take shape. First, a condition needs to be identified as problematic. Second, the condition has to gain public recognition. Third, it must be framed in a way that suggests responsibility and possible solutions. And finally, collective responses are organized. This often happens through media, advocacy groups, or political institutions. From a symbolic interactionist perspective, what matters is not only what happens, but how it's interpreted. Two identical conditions may be ignored or treated as crises depending on how they are symbolically framed. Language, narratives, and moral claims play a decisive role in determining which issue gains attention and which remains invisible. This focus on interpretation and meaning links symbolic interactionism to broader philosophical ideas, particularly postmodernism. Postmodern thought is skeptical of grand narratives and universal truths, emphasizing instead the contingency of knowledge and the role of discourse in shaping reality. There's a clear affinity here. If social reality is constructed through interaction, and if meanings are always situated within particular cultural and historical contexts, then claims to absolute or universal truth become more difficult to sustain. Symbolic interactionism doesn't necessarily deny the existence of absolute truth. but it does challenge the assumption that truth can be accessed independently of social interpretation. This helps explain why symbolic interactionism is often associated, sometimes very uncomfortably, with cultural relativism. However, this association reflects a tension rather than a conclusion. The paradigm describes how meanings are constructed. It doesn't claim that all meanings are equally valid. Like all paradigms, symbolic interactionism has limits. Its focus on micro-level interaction makes it less effective for explaining large-scale institutions or systemic power structures. On its own, it tells us very little about how resources are distributed or why institutions and traditions persist across generations. Its strength lies elsewhere. Symbolic interactionism reveals how social reality is produced moment by moment through language, labeling, identity, and interpretation. It helps us understand how people come to see the world as they do, and how shared meanings can change without formal policy shifts or structural reform. In contrast to structural functionalism's emphasis on cohesion and conflict theory's focus on power, symbolic interactionism is a reminder that society is also built from the ground up through everyday acts of interpretation that quietly shape what feels normal, natural, or true. Understanding symbolic interactionism isn't about rejecting or accepting structure and power, but about recognizing that both depend on meaning. Social reality is not only imposed, it's constantly interpreted. That process matters. Thanks for taking some time to check in and join me here today. If these thoughts and ideas connect and you find them useful, you'll find more content like this at Quiet Frontier. It's where I post my thoughts on mind, meaning, purpose, and connection. There's a small storefront and a growing wiki there too. Thanks again for taking the time to watch. Take good care.